People who have signed NDAs that have now expired or for whatever reason are no longer valid. What couldn't you tell us but now can? House hunters guest checking in. I never made the show because I didn't close on the house. 1. I had to have a house under contract before going on the show. 2. They would select the other houses we were interested in. 3. I was assigned another SO who was more interesting than my actual SO. Dang. How did your SO feel about that? That someone was making a wristwatch with 2 faces so you could set one to local time and one to the time you're from. For international travelers. My boss almost immediately broke it and had to pay. I was a model for a few big name well-known makeup companies. I did several print ads for magazines and a few television commercials. The makeup artists do use the product advertised, but minimally. Like that mascara they're touting, it's over really good fake eyelashes, and they also used another brand of mascara along with the one they're trying to sell you. Also, the clothes in the ads you see are pinned to high heaven on the model. They fit nothing like they look. It's not you. It's not your body. It's fake advertising. Most of us models look just like you wearing that crap without all the pins and tucks and double-sided tape. Ugh. Thank you for this. Every time I've seen an ad for crappy mascara I've used before and thought, there's no way they're using that mascara in this freaking ad, have been vindicated. Did some work on the trading floor at Goldman Sachs. I had access to all trading accounts and transactions. Came across some shady looking accounts which did not meet policy. It did not use clearly identifiable name and I could not find records of creation or testing for it, etc. I asked my supervisor if I should look into this. He turned to me and said, we don't ask about those accounts, just ignore them. Orders from the top. Trading account creation is a long and detailed process that requires formal approval from multiple lines of management. These accounts circumvented all that and were basically anonymous with no trace. They were also trading high volume, and I was told to accept and ignore them. I feel like the SEC should have been told about this. A friend of mine got a job at a prominent local distillery that makes an extremely popular flavored whiskey. They literally buy whiskey from a third-party distillery and dump Torani flavoring syrup into it. One of my friend's brothers was on the MTV showroom Raiders. Everything in the show is staged. All of the items that they would find were planted. At the end of the show, the prize was not a date with the girl that he picked. He just got her phone number. Saw the new Ferrari hybrid tech by employee error and couldn't speak or mention it until today as they launched a new hybrid model. I can now tell you that Ferrari intends to have a car with 3 hybrid motors and that's pretty much it. Amazon made me sign one when I worked with a company that painted their airplanes before the public knew they had them. I did the FAA paperwork. I was literally only one of like 7 people to see their airplane fully purple with their logo on it. I was actually taken off of the project for a day because they thought I lied about not having a Facebook. They meant business. Apple 100% replaced the iPhone 4 for users because of a crappy antenna. We were instructed to dodge, deflect, and deny this was the issue. Cell phone providers were crap. The phone was a fluke. It didn't matter. Don't admit fault. But if they were there for reception versus water damage, buttons or battery life, you had to make sure you were swapping them with the newer batch iPhone 4 swaps rather than the typical batch swaps. It was a recall without being a recall, but only if you had reception issues. Son of a bee, I knew it. I signed an NDA once when I was an extra on Mortal Engines. If you watch the movie, you'll learn more than I did on set. I watched the movie, understood nothing, so. Not me, but a guy I know was on cash cab. A lot of it was faked. He was told he would be on a travel food show and would get picked up by a fake taxi at a certain location at a certain time. There were camera crews all over outside the taxi and there's no way on earth you might mistake it for a real cab. I always assumed that the contestants knew they were going to be on cash cab and their surprised reactions were all faked. If this is true, it's actually a pleasant surprise. Previous pharmacy chain I worked for, always at risk of robbery for opiates, and we are always taught to give the robber what they want with no questions asked. Have heard of times that pharmacists instead gave bottles of oxy with Tylenol in it instead and other things that were reckless and dangerous due to possible retaliation when and if they figure out they have been duped. New policy and NDA comes out where specific opiates were placed in safe with GPS tracker and charger, so when it is removed from radius of origin, it issues remote notification to third party that tracks location and works with local LEOD to find the wanted party. I worked for a native casino. The golf courses lost a ton of money for us, as did the advertising for the courses. Food we generally broke even on because of all the comps. If a crime was committed by a dealer, they would watch the dealer for 3 months to see if there were accomplices. They used facial recognition and would pair match you, so if the same person sat with the same dealer over and over, they would know. This way they could look for accomplices. Then when they busted you, they would sit you down and make you watch a video of you breaking the law. They did this because they wanted you to plead guilty as opposed to an expensive trial. Anyone in the golf industry could tell you the first part is absolutely true, even though the golf course increases the value of everything else nearby. Such a weird duality. I had to sign an NDA because I was part of a test screening for the Dark Tower with Idris Elba. Tried to tell them it sucked. They didn't want to listen. We used an extract to flavor our peanut butter porter. God, it feels good to get that off my chest. I signed an NDA to waitress at a local family-owned restaurant. The owner was nuts, definitely had a severe personality disorder, and was worried about his recipes getting leaked. The restaurant is dead now and his secret recipes consisted almost solely of frozen packaged food. Signed an NDA when I worked as a fit model for Katy Perry's shoe line. Basically, a fit model is used for their good proportions to test out the fit of garments. I'm a solid size 7.5, so hooray for being average. I was hired on 2 occasions and got to hang out and give her my opinion on the fit, feeling, and comfort of different shoes. Didn't think she'd actually be there, but both times she was present and totally running the show. Super nice woman in person and remembered me when we met again. Also, she apologized for making me wait so long, which I thought was nice. It was a late night meeting as she'd just wrapped shooting a music video. Her dog is really cute too, and I got to save it when it got stuck behind a wall panel. I know someone who edited one of Katy Perry's music videos and they said she was really put together, easy to work with, and reasonable, whereas the record label execs were a pain in the butt. D&D 5e had a kick-ass online character builder that made character creation a breeze. It listed all of the possible skills etc per race and class that was intuitive and made theory crafting for characters easy. Personal conjecture, they canned it because it took away from the pen and paper aspect of the game and they were afraid with an online tool it'd take away from book sales. There are still some pretty amazing fan-made ones out there. Worked for a short time as a QA tester at EA, and wasn't allowed to talk about the game I was testing, the console port for The Sims 4. There wasn't really much to talk about, but since the first few versions were basically just running the PC version on a console, there were a lot of bugs with it. One of the worst was a lighting bug we started referring to as disco mode, since it caused a bunch of multicolored squares to show up on everything at night or in dark areas. In 1990, I signed an NDA at Chili's when they showed me how to make their new awesome blossom. No other restaurant in town had anything like it and it was hugely popular at the time. Worked at a matchmaking company. It's all BS, it's just throwing darts at a wall until something sticks. There's no science or magic to it all. What we did was get a paid client and set him up on dates. The dates we found were from a pool of women and we would just keep picking one after another. I quit because I felt like the women were just being used, and I became uncomfortable profiting off of people's hopes. They very much play up on finding your true love and it's a process. Blah blah. They'll very much play up the fairy tale romance. It did change me. I don't really date anymore because I don't trust the true intentions of people anymore. I became very jaded to dating after all of that. I thought you meant a company that makes literal matches and was confused. Figured that recipe would have been locked down long ago. Kraft Macaroni and Cheese are coming out with a more modern and upscale version to expand their market from lower income folks to higher income folks. It is almost entirely the same product as the 69-cent blue box. It will have a lighter, less orangey color. They will be sold as shells and not macaroni. The box will be shaped differently, and it will go for $2.50 or more. Stated to be released by 1995. Maybe I'm lower class, but I like it when it's more orange. A certain global conferencing company still saves passwords for their web products in plain text. Any, and I mean any, employee that works there can see the password. My password there was not my pass, you idiot, because I know other people would see it eventually, and they'd even comment laugh about it. Also, we once discovered that our main conferencing software was letting you sign in regardless of the password you entered, meaning you could sign in with any email address. Once we brought it up, we first were immediately stonewalled and told not to say anything about it in written format. TLDR. They had the dev team and legal on a conference call and they decided it was best to just keep it quiet until they fixed it later that day. No client was to be notified of the issue, and the ones that knew of it were basically given a runaround until they gave up. They also added call spoofing to the software. They called it something fancier, but it was call spoofing. You could make a call and make it appear from any number you wanted. My team raised this concern many times, but were counted with no one will actually use it for that. That place was a goldmine of security risks. Good ole go-to meeting. There is going to be a Capri Sun sports flavor in roughly 2003. I was a taste tester for Kraft Foods when I was 10. We didn't sign an NDA, but it was supposed to be a secret. They expected you to share it with all your friends to generate grassroots hype. You failed them. Sony got hacked over that North Korea movie because of a 5-year-old account they didn't delete or monitor from an ex-employee. Mini Cooper BMW replaced our car because the high pressure fuel pump failed 6 times within 6 months. However, the recorded reason for the replacement of the car was because of stained interior from dirty mechanic hands, so it wasn't replaced via the Lemon Law. A government, in 1972, identified a terrorist by his wife's breasts from satellite images. By God, that woman deserves to know that her breasts are so big they can be seen from space. I was a translator, contractor, for the US military. I also translated Marvel comic books. Marvel had tighter security. This does not surprise me. I've worked in aerospace on military contracts most of my professional career. The most restrictive NDA I've had to sign was for a candy bagging machine for a candy company. Google doesn't hire direct support employees. They open small projects in the US. Hire up to 250 contract employees of varying support positions for the project. Once they get the stats needed to run everything efficiently, they have mass layoffs and outsource their jobs to a country, Philippines, India, that's willing to accept much less than their US counterpart. At the same time, Google rakes in a huge tax cut because they're creating jobs in the local communities. When I was a kid, I visited the dentist for a cavity. While there, the dentist slipped while drilling my tooth and drilled a hole under my tongue. My mom saw me tense up, and my dentist said, "Oh, nicked her there a bit so you might see a little blood." I got home and after an hour, my entire neck was swollen up like a frog and my voice was squeaky because of the air pressure. A pocket of air was pressing against my heart. Dirty air, at that, because of the bacteria in my mouth. I was admitted to the hospital as a code 4, with a code 5 being dead. When my mom tried to sue the dentist for damages, he claimed I was kicking and screaming and out of control during the act, even getting his secretary to vouch for him and testify. Total BS. I liked the dentist, and I was a people pleaser. Also, laughing gas. My mom's lawyer was super pessimistic and told her just to settle and sign an NDA because she had a small chance of winning. So my mom settled, being naive and scared to take on an office full of liars. She could never disclose who the dentist was, and we've heard other horror stories throughout the years about this dentist effing up other people's mouths. It sucks because every lawyer we've talked to after the fact says we had a very strong case and it's likely we would have won. Like really won. I'm pretty sure the company is bankrupt now, since it's been almost 15 years and the product hasn't seen the light of day. I was interviewing with a company that was working on a new design for a public toilet that was going to change everything. It consisted of the following. 1. A pair of toilets, back to back. One would rotate up into the wall, where it would be thoroughly cleaned, and then rotated back down so the other, recently used, toilet could be swung up into the wall for its turn in the washer. 2. The toilets wouldn't have the traditional water pool, but would instead have a conveyor belt that would carry the poo, and whatever else, back to an open pipe, clog free. I quickly saw that this product was going nowhere, so I declined to work for them, but sent them a 2 or 3 page email about the pitfalls of the design. 1. What happens when the auto swapping toilet machine accidentally activates while someone is on the loo? 2. How much more expensive will this be than a regular porcelain John? 3. How hard will it be to retrofit all of the machinery and plumbing for the auto wash into existing architecture? 4. How do you intend on cleaning a conveyor belt that has been exposed to human waste, plus whatever other trash that gets put down onto the unit? 5. What will an open vent to the sewer smell like if you don't have the water separation like you do with a regular toilet? I'm not really sure if what I saw was declassified or expired, so I can't give specifics. I participated in arming and training some militia groups in Iraq to fight ISIS that had highly questionable motives and very little vetting done on them. I'm pretty sure that if we didn't need the cannon fodder for the siege of Mosul, that we would probably be bombing and drone striking some of the groups that we were busy passing out guns to. Also, I once had an IED dog alert on a truck that had a highly concerning amount of brain matter in on it. I mean, yeah, any amount would be suspect, but there was like 5 or 6 people's worth of brains there. I've seen head pops and know how much brains get around, and there was a lot more than that present. We had dragged him from the vehicle and were preparing to conduct a more thorough search. We were ordered via radio to stand down and let the guy, who was eerily cheerful about driving a truck plastered from bed to hood in human brain matter, continue on his way. He gave me a pack of smokes, smiled, and said he took no offense to our search and understood how troubling the situation must appear, that he felt that we were welcome guests in his country, and that he hoped we had a nice day, then drove off. No freaking clue WTF that was about. I used to work for a company in the Middle East that provided relocation services to people in America. We represented 3 main companies under 9 different names, which changed every so often when the reviews got really bad. We had receptionists whose main task, aside from damage control, was to write a few extremely positive reviews for each company every single day in order to counter all the negative ones. I worked in sales. Our job was to catalog everything our clients wanted to move and then provide the best possible price while lying through our teeth about the service itself. We promised professional movers who had all the necessary training and tools for the job, great prices, quick deliveries, you name it. On moving day, the movers who showed up were often in unmarked trucks or ones with completely different names and branding on them. The workers were often immigrants who were paid under the table and had no experience whatsoever. The deliveries themselves often took a long time and items were often lost as multiple moves would be stacked into one truck without much labeling of items or categorizing in general. As mentioned earlier, we changed company names fairly often as the negative reviews and bad press stacked up. Moving is a toxic business, and people will always try to undermine and cheat. This is something you should never cheap out on, as the money is well worth the comfort of knowing your move is in good hands. If you are moving, I recommend finding a company that is local if possible, so that you can meet the people who represent it and see that their business is legitimate. More importantly, they will be able to send someone to survey your belongings and give a more realistic quote and time estimate. Even if it costs much more than the quotes you receive online or from salesmen, it is well worth the peace of mind on an already stressful venture. Lots of missile launchers around DC, literally dozens. You have been visited by the Cash Chihuahua. Like this video and you will be blessed with the greatest fortune. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.